Hello and good morning.
Hey, Arrow, how you doing?
Fantastic, man. Looking forward to talking with you, dude.
Absolutely.
And Van Morrison is the subject this time around. Oh, my God. What really drew you into this one?
Well, I've always been a fan of Van. I mean, he's, one of the preeminent singer-songwriters. He's crossed a lot of different movements in rock and roll history, starting with the British invasion when, he was with them, and then crossing into the singer-songwriter movement, late 60s, early 70s, and really kind of forging his own sound. He's an incredibly versatile artist who really kind of embodies like four different artists in one guy.
He's one of those artists that in my life, it was one of those, he belonged to that band, that's him? And it was with the group Them, because I had no clue until I was doing music research.
Yeah, and then, it started off as a band, but it kind of grew into just Van and a bunch of studio musicians. They had a revolving door of personnel coming through during Van's time there, and it was just one of those deals where the management was kind of shady, and they were always throwing out the groups that as Them. It wasn't necessarily Van Morrison and Them, but the releases from 64 to 66 were Van Morrison, and essentially, like I said, him with a bunch of studio musicians. So you really kind of getting Van Morrison solo there when you don't even realize it.
Wow. One of the things that I've always loved about Van Morrison is that you can put on the album, or you can ask Alexa to play Van Morrison, and it's a portal. You escape this realm of where we are right now, and he takes you wherever you want to go. Yeah,
he definitely has moods about him, and it's very spiritual for him in a lot of ways. I know he's a cranky guy, but he does seem to be a spiritual, faithful guy on some level. And it comes through in his music. It's particularly, from the 80s on to up to today.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed about him is that he's not afraid of being Van Morrison. So many people, they become these characters because even, it's one of those where it's like Van Morrison is this in his life, but it's almost like he has a separate life away from that, which he enjoys as well.
Right. He's very private, and, the thing about him is he's one of those guys who never sings the song the same way twice. And really? I don't know if he does it just to mess with people, or to tick people off, or if that's just the way the spirit moves him at the time, but and the one thing he's always been able to do is to take an old song. I know there's a couple of Them songs that he did when he was touring with the Caledonia Soul Orchestra, and made him sound like the stuff he was recording right in that moment, so he's very adaptable, and like you say, he's very moody, very ethereal, and he's just a wonder to listen. I'm anybody who's into him is blessed in a sense.
Well, Farrah Fawcett was into him.
Yeah, that's amazing. The guy's had quite a love life, but I know he was married to a model too for quite a long time. I think they divorced a few years ago, but he's an interesting cat, that's for sure.
Well, why is it that he hasn't allowed paparazzi or somebody to cover him? Because when you are hanging out with models and Farrah Fawcett and even Laura Bush loving him as much as she does, it's like that. Those are picture moments, but we don't see those pictures.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it, man. If he has maybe an underground way in and out of his home, who knows? But he seems to, and not only that, he's very unassuming looking. I mean, he kind of looks like the president of a bank, when you see him. It's like he doesn't look like a rock and roll singer.
Yeah. Rolling Stone magazine labels him number 42 of greatest artists of all time. I mean, does he even look at things like that and say, yeah, I need to be in the top 50. I got it handled.
No, he could care less. He didn't even show up to his own Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and gave one of those typical Van Morrison, it's all about the music, not about the accolades, statements about it, so he could care less about that stuff.
Well, then let me ask you this then, is it his mystique that we fall in love with then?
Yeah, I think so. He's had stuff written about him, but they all come from sources and friends of friends and people from his past. He's a very hard guy to pin down. He does not like to be written about. He's doesn't like to have his music reissued without his blessing or say so. And if it is, he again issues these scathing statements saying that his artistic freedom or his artistic muse has been taken away. And he doesn't like that. So he's very private. And he's not. I don't think he's. He does look back. When they put out a 2 CD set a few years ago of everything them did, and had some bonus cuts, and he actually wrote the liner notes, and they were very touching, very moving. He really spoke about that time in his life and what it was like being in them. But he doesn't do that very often. He's not really a nostalgic kind of guy. So he's always on ready for the next thing.
When you say that he doesn't like things written about him, is that why you haven't written about him?
Yeah, I mean, he's very difficult. It's almost kind of like writing about Bob Dylan. It's like Bob Dylan is another guy that, after the 1970s, or really the late 1960s, he becomes very private, very pinned down, very hard to write about, and it's you have to go far and away to find stuff like that. And for me personally, I would probably have to go to Ireland and talk to people there. And I prefer to write about people that I can kind of identify with, kind of growing up here in the United States and the American culture. I'm not as familiar with European culture, not that I couldn't do it. And I would certainly, if somebody gave me a nice advance to go do it, I would certainly get into it, but not going over there anytime soon.
Does he fit into a genre? And the reason why I bring that up is because Brown Eyed Girl, even though it was on the top 40 charts, it's also still one of the biggest beach songs of all time here in the Carolinas. People shag to it.
Yeah, he fits into a lot of genres. I mean, you could throw the them music in the British Invasion. You could put him in really the singer-songwriter, soft rock kind of movement of the early 70s. He's done a lot of jazz and folk stuff. He's done skiffle. And he's done, I wouldn't say classic. I would say, his albums probably fit into classic rock, but it's not like guitar driven or drum heavy. It's just good stuff from that era.
He does carry that image of being a little tough to work with.
He's very, I think he's a tough guy to work with.
Ooh.
I think he's very demanding. He likes to change things up on the fly. And I think he's one of those guys that he wants you to read his mind and adapt quickly to what he's changing. He's done that. He's, I believe his band, or not his band in the street, but I remember in Tupelo Honey, he started off the record to be an a cappella thing, or it was street choir. And then, fired the whole band, started over, and so it's one of those things. I don't know if what he's like today, but I would imagine he probably hasn't changed his stripes too much.
Oh my God! Right away, I have a flashback of Bon Jovi. It's like, whose name is on the band? My name. Okay, you gotta go.
Absolutely. He gets all the blame. He gets maybe too much credit and too much of the blame.
Oh my God! The 50th year. How does he celebrate something like this? Is he going to rely on historians like you to get that story out there, or does he care?
I don't think he really cares too much. It's probably just a number to him. I'm not speaking for him, just my guess. He is touring later this month. I think he begins, but it's his tours are short, and they usually cover certain cities in Europe and America. And he is going out, so I recommend if you can catch him, go see it. You see a legend in action.
Is he on your bucket list for an interview?
You know what? I would love to interview him, but have you ever seen an interview with him? Sometimes they're really awkward. It almost looks like a hostage video. It's like, I don't know. I would love to talk to him, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's, to me, when I watch the videos, it's like, as the viewer, I feel uncomfortable because sometimes he only gives you those one-worded answers, and you're going, oh my God, I'm glad I wasn't interviewing him on that day.
Oh, yeah. There's a great clip online you should check out, anybody as your listeners, of Dick Clark interviewing him on American Bandstand with Brown Eyed Girl. It's one of the most awkward interviews you're ever going to watch, but it's hilarious.
Wow. See, and that's every bit the reason why I love, having conversations with you, because you inspire people to go do something. You're so interactive with your storytelling to where people can, get a little bit more thoughtful about the songs they're listening to. Don't just use the song, know the song.
Yeah, and with all the technology we have and YouTube and things like that, you can take a trip back. It's very easy. It's easier than it's ever been.
All right, all of your books that you've got out there. Okay, how are they doing for you? You doing good?
Oh yeah, we're doing good. I got All the Leaves Are Brown. How the Mamas and the Papas Came Together and Broke Apart. It's still out there. I'm working on my Waylon Jennings book still, and actually working on a couple documentaries for the Catholic Channel on Sirius XM. So. We'll have those out shortly.
I want my hands on that Waylon Jennings book because he, just like Van Morrison, to me, is a big mystery. We only know those moments where, because all of a sudden, country music had the bad boys.
Yeah, and where did they come from? He had been around. If you weren't paying attention in 1960, or if you were somewhat paying attention in 1966, you heard of a guy named Waylon Jennings. But then by 1974, he looks completely different and he's dominating. And you're like, wow, where did this guy come from? So there's a lot of stuff that happened to make that come about, and I tell the whole story.
Are you going to talk to his grandson? Because he's a great conversation dude.
I'm planning on it. I've talked so far with mostly people that he worked with, musicians, and some people he grew up with. But we're working on the family next.
Man, I can't wait for that book, dude. All right, where's the website where people can go to find out more about you, tap into what you're doing?
It is scottsheaauthor.com, and Shea is spelled S-H-E-A, like the stadium.
I love it. Come back to the show anytime. You know the door is always open for you, dude.
Thanks, Arrow. Appreciate it.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
You too, man.